Executive Officer of Operation Hope. I'm here to talk about what changed and possibly saved my life. That's right, financial literacy. Sounds pretty audacious, doesn't it? Pretty crazy statement, doesn't it? But it actually isn't. My grandfather was born in 1871, R.B. Smith. I go through all this in the book Up From Nothing if you want to go into details on this story. My grandfather in 1871 in Mississippi was probably born into slavery, but my great-grandfather was definitely a slave. I don't know much about my great-grandfather. I know my grandfather was a farmer, probably a sharecropper, which means that he was cheated out of his hard-earned wages on what he thought would be his own land, that he worked with ease until his hands were raw. Unfortunately, most of what he earned went to someone else because they understood money and he did not. My grandfather was able to accumulate, I think it was about $700 for that farm, which I guess was a lot of money between 1871 and the early 1900s. My father was born in the early 1900s, around the time of the Great Depression. My father built on that legacy, as hard wrought as it was, and created a business. I thank my father. Because of him being a businessman, I was able to become an entrepreneur. See that progression? Slave, farmer, even a subsistence farmer, businessman, entrepreneur, and freedom. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story is not as rosy as it sounds. So my father came from Mississippi and married my mother, brought her from East St. Louis, where he met her, to Los Angeles, where I was born. And they quickly, this is part of the story that sounds really great, and it is great, they quickly accumulated a lot of assets as high school educated, really smart, hardworking people. My mother actually went back to high school to achieve her high school equivalency in her 60s, to show you how much chutzpah my mother has, whose credit score today is 874 and is financially, again, getting ahead of myself. This story, again, is not as great as it sounds. You're going to find yourself in this story. Just hold on a minute. So my mom and dad accumulated a gas station at Vernon and Normandy in South Central LA, the southeast corner. If I say that correctly, if I recall correctly. We had our own home on Martin Luther King Boulevard. It used to be called Santa Barbara back then. Across the street, we owned an 8-unit apartment building. Again, it sounds really great, and maybe it doesn't sound like it's in touch with the average American, but hold on. 8-unit apartment building we bought for $18,000, would be worth $6 million, I believe, today. You can make the mortgage on 2 payments of rent being paid to the family. We lived in the 3rd unit, which meant that the rest of the units would have been pure profit had we done it properly. We owned a couple other businesses. Anyway, we lost it all because my dad was an amazing human being and hardworking. But because he was financially illiterate and he was full of pride and wouldn't listen to my mother, Ambassador Andrew Young says that men and women fail for 3 reasons: arrogance, pride, and greed. We also fail for lack of knowing. It is what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. And we think that lifestyle riches is wealth. We think that making money, getting paid, getting that paper, getting that dollars, they say in my neighborhood, is the same thing as wealth. It is not. You build wealth in your sleep. You build wealth through compounding, but I'm getting ahead of myself. My father thought that cash flow was profit, even worse. So he would underbid jobs on the construction site in order to get the job, not realizing that his cost of labor and cost of materials outstripped the revenue he was making on the job. But he figured that cash flow was king. The problem is the more money we made, the broker we got. He made $1 and spent $1.50. He was financially illiterate and didn't know it. So we lost our home. We lost a 8-unit apartment building, which would be worth $6 million today. That's generational wealth. Bought it for $18,000. Talk about ouch. And so after 54 years, I had to take care of my father because he couldn't take care of himself after 54 years in business. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My mom and dad would argue over money, and I think I was 5 years old. They'd argue over money. They got divorced over money. And my brother couldn't go to college because of fights over money. The $4,000 my mother had saved to send my brother to college, my father got into the bank first. And my brother had to go in the military because he wanted to go to college, but he couldn't go to the college of his choice because the money was gone. And my dad thought he had another big idea, one of his grand ideas for, I guess, getting rich quick or whatever, but he lost it all. And my brother was forced to go in the military to get an education. Well, that means he spent his entire career in the military, which is great. He ended up moving to a military town, great. Ended up being stationed in Hawaii, marrying somebody from Hawaii. Now has a beautiful family that looks like the United Nations, great. Retired from the Navy, great. And then went to go work as a contractor for the Navy, great. But that's my brother's entire life, dictated by a $4,000 decision that he couldn't make. The trajectory of my whole brother's entire life changed. What would he be today if he had his own choice? Would he be the mayor, governor? I don't know. Would he be a businessman, entrepreneur? I don't know. But the choice was taken from him. Fast forward, my mom and dad divorced over money. I remember watching it. I'm going to remember my uncle was trying to sell drugs in the wrong neighborhood, trying to make some extra money. Again, all this is about money. He was a good guy, worked 9 to 5, but he thought he could get rich quick. Thought selling marijuana was no big deal. Sold in the wrong neighborhood. They followed him home. They ran him down until he was dead in a pickup truck right in front of me. I'm 7 years old. It's the same man who saved my life. I call him my uncle. It's really my play uncle. But he saved my life when I was swallowing my tongue. I fell on the sidewalk, I believe it was, and I was swallowing my tongue. My breathing passage was closed, and he hit me in the back between my shoulder blades, and I guess reached down and cleared my breathing passage. And I really would love to say thank you to him today, but I can't because he was murdered over money. Fast forward to I'm 9 years old, my best friend George, who I loved and I thought was smarter than me, but I was lucky to have a mother who told me she loved me every day of my life. And my father owned his own business and George did not. And George didn't have good role models, but he was really wicked smart. But anyway, culture is everything. The culture in your neighborhood, on your block, on your street, in your house. I had the right culture. George did not. I had a sense of yes, I am and yes, I can because my mother told me she loved me. My dad owned his own business. I knew what I can do. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I did not know. But George didn't know who he was. And there's a difference between being broke and being poor. Being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind, a spirit, and you must vow never, ever, ever to be poor again. That was the first signature quote of Operation Hope when I founded it after the Rodney King riots of 1992 in South Central Los Angeles. It still sticks to this day. George was murdered on a street corner with the next door neighbor, Tweet, a local gangster, trying to make some extra money the wrong way. By the time I was 9 years old, I'd had it. I didn't want to live a life this way. I didn't want to grow up this way. It had to be a better way. And so I'm at school, coincidence, as Dr. Andrew Young would say, and I'm at school in Compton, California. I believe it was El Segundo Elementary School or Colin P. Kelly Elementary School. They changed the name around that time. And I remember being at school and a banker came in my classroom. It happened to be a banker, oddly enough, from Bank of America, which is a big partner in something we're announcing called Financial Literacy for All, by the way. It's one of our first partners, but and other banks will join, by the way. But we want to give them kudos for that. Anyway, this banker from Bank of America came in and taught me financial literacy. It was the first year of Community Reinvestment Act. And most kids were distracted or not interested, and I wasn't all that interested either. But I was fascinated with who this white man was in my classroom. He had on a red tie, a white shirt, and a blue suit. The suit was beautiful. Nice stitching in the suit. It was not a bad suit. I remember seeing bad suits. It was the only white man I saw in my neighborhood with a suit on. The suit was a detective with the police, and it was a really bad suit. I don't mean a bad suit. I mean a bad suit. So I'm looking at this guy. I'm going, well, who is this guy? Like, nobody in my neighborhood wears suits, and nobody in my neighborhood has a business card. No one in my neighborhood, this is really sad, by the way. No one in my neighborhood is on a salary. No one can leave in the middle of the day and come teach a class. It's an hourly worker. They don't have white collars. They have blue collars, which is what the work that my mother did at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, where she worked her fingers to the bone, so much so they had to remove one of her, I think it was her nasal passages or in vocal cords in her throat from the work she was doing at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, breathing these fumes. But she worked that way and worked that hard to give her children liberty, and she bought and sold 7 homes on an hourly wage, and she's financially independent today. Back to the story. So I'm at school and I'm listening, and this banker is in front of me, and I'm thinking to myself, where does he work? He works in an office tower. Well, there's no office buildings in Compton, California, other than the courthouse, and the house for processing criminals. So I'm like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? So I raised my hand. This is like I'm watching a Martian. He's wearing a suit. He's got a nice car. He's not in a rush. No one's chasing him. He's not following anybody. He doesn't work for the government. He works in an office tower. What's that? I mean, who is this guy? And I raised my hand and said, excuse me, sir, what do you do for a living? And how did you get rich legally? He said, young man, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is. I'm 9 years old. I've never heard that word before in my life. French word means build something out of nothing. I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if you're financing them and it's legal, I'm going to be one. And that's who I am today, an entrepreneur. That next year, I went home and the endorphins started kicking in the right side of my brain, where hope, well-being, engagement, belief, dreaming, aspiration, opportunity, confidence, all that is the right side of your brain. Logic is on the left side of your brain. If you don't kick the right side of your brain, it never gets to the logic table on the left side of your brain, which is precisely why you have in screwed up neighborhoods like I grew up, a banker, a check casher across you from a bank, or a payday loan lender across you from a bank. Because if poverty was rational, poor people wouldn't be poor. Okay, we are being psychologically hoodwinked. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depressed. So I asked this banker this question. He told me the answer. I went home and opened the dictionary to the word entrepreneur. Yes, for this generation, there used to be a dictionary. You can just Google search it now. Anyway, I looked in the dictionary under entrepreneur, build something out of nothing, create something of value. I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's freedom to me. I want to do that. I don't want to cash a check, which is cool, what my mother did. I want to write a check. I want to be a businessman, entrepreneur. By the way, those two things are different, businessmen and entrepreneurs, but that'll be in another video. I actually think I did a video on that. And I started the neighborhood candy house in my den. That's the short story. The longer story is, thanks to the confidence of my mother, I went to the liquor store owner and told him he was selling the wrong kind of candy. And he said, go away, little boy. I've got a college degree. I said, that's nice. I've got cavities. You're selling the wrong kind of candy. You should hire me. He said, I'll hire you as a salesman. You're really good. I said, I don't want to be a salesman. I don't want to, I want to be, a box boy. He said, that's the worst job I've got. That's the job I want, I said. He said, okay, take the worst job I've got. That's fine. It was the best job I could see because that's where I could do research. I went into his back room and figured out where he was buying his inventory from, what the wholesale rate was, what the retail rate was, what the profit margin was, what the markup was, where he sources goods, what terms he got those goods on. I figured out over 2 or 3 weeks, I see there's 6 weeks, I believe, what candy was selling, what was not. Basically, I proved my theory. He was selling the wrong kind of candy. And so I quit, went home, borrowed $40 off my mother, who's a capitalist and would not allow me to just take the money. She said, this is the way the world works. You're going to have to borrow the money and pay it back to me. It was good terms. And I paid her back. And a few weeks later, I was in business in the den of my house. And I made $600 a week. I think it was, $300 a week on a $40 investment. And after a little while, I put the liquor store out of the candy business. I think it was 6 months, 3 to 6 months, I think it was. I put the liquor store out of the candy business. And my self-esteem went through the roof. And that financial literacy lesson, that active financial literacy lesson literally saved my life. No different than it changed my brother's life. God bless him. He's an incredible human being, incredible father. But his choices were limited. And my choices were as a result of really me coming after him and seeing what they went through, and him taking my whippings from me, by the way. I was able to learn on everybody else's mistakes and improve upon that, like a software upgrade, just like what we need. We need a software upgrade. in order to compete in this world today. And I was able to pursue my own definition of freedom. You cannot have freedom today without self-determination. You cannot self-determine yourself unless you understand the language of money. So there's much more to this story. You can read it in Up From Nothing if you're interested, or watch some of my videos for free on this video series that I've got. It's now have over 100 million video views. Or you can just go to Financial Literacy for All initiative, which we just launched. Very proud of this. The Financial Literacy for All initiative is the first time I'm aware of in history where we have gotten the biggest companies in the world, and I'm co-chairing this with Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, to go where no one has ever gone before, which is to embed financial literacy into the business plan of America. So we got CEO of Walmart, the CEO of Disney. So cool. They'll help us with content. The CEO of Khan Academy will help us with video. CEO of Bank of America, CEO of Delta Airlines. We're doing financial coaching with all 80,000 of their employees. We're bringing financial coaching into the workplace. The CEO of Walgreens, Roz Brewer, the CEO of Aries Management and the owner of the Atlanta Hawks, entrepreneur Tony Ressler, the commissioner of the NFL, commissioner of the NBA. This is going to be incredible, and others will join in as well as we proceed and grow this movement. As we open the doors, I think hundreds of companies will join us in what we're doing to change America, to see social justice through an economic lens, to live in a moment in history, which is what I think we're in right now. We're in a moment in history, but history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to join us in this movement? Please go to Financial Literacy for All and join this movement. Help us change the world in this lifetime. Help us make financial literacy the new civil rights issue for this generation, to embed this in our workplace, to embed this in our schools, to return classes like home economics, which doesn't exist anymore, that changed my life, to embed this in the customer experience, to embed this in our communities, in our households, so we can stop struggling with financial indignity, with too much month at the end of our money. Whether you're white, black, red, brown, or yellow as in race, or whether you're red or blue as in political party, what you all want is some more green, as in U.S. currency, if the United States of America. This is the largest economy in the world, but 70% of this economy is living from paycheck to paycheck, 70%. And 70% of GDP, gross domestic product in America, is consumer spending by the average everyday American. It's not billionaires, not millionaires, not big corporations, just you and me. So if we are the change makers, we got to be empowered to change the world and be the change we want to see in the world. We need to make free enterprise and capitalism an opportunity work for all of God's children, which means we need to train them up, educate them, equip them with the tools they need to compete in this society. We're there for you. We are your partners. Go to operationhope.org if you get lost and can't find the initiative, or you're confused about something I've said here. We have offices all across the country, and we'll be inviting other nonprofit organizations that are also doing great work in financial literacy. You're going to have within a couple of weeks a resource guide at Financial Literacy for All, where you can, if Operation Hope is not near you, or you just want to use another nonprofit, you'll be able to go to a range of organizations that are doing great work in communities, in schools right near you, and select the one that works for you. And hopefully, increasingly, you'll find your employer, wherever you hang out, wherever you happen to be, whatever you happen to see will include Financial Literacy for All curriculum and programming over the next decade, because that's how long we're doing this, a decade. Be the change you want to see in the world. What we do in the next 10 years just may impact the next 100. Thank you very much. I hope you've been inspired.